You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. Back from my whirlwind overseas trip, Ed, and I am jet-lagged, fighting some sort of ailment. I'm sick, so folks, I'm going to hang in. I'm going to do the show. There's no video on YouTube until I can sleep properly again. I don't know why I decided to do the trip that I did. It was fun, but I'm going to pay for it for the next week.
I mean, the Lederhosen's a nice touch. It's too bad the listeners won't get a chance to see it on YouTube.
Like the flight out there, I had a hard time sleeping. I landed. My buddy was retiring from Space Force, which I found totally enjoyable to go and do. But I mean, we were at Ramstein Air Force Base, or I think it's just called Ramstein Air Base now. It's where the Air Command is for the U.S. for all of Europe, all of Africa, and then NATO's there as well. So there's all these soldiers walking around from other countries on the base. And I had a blast. You know, I got a million stories, but I don't want to fill up the whole show with them. But like when I landed, their day was beginning, and I had been up 24 hours, and I had to hang in there for a ceremony and the party afterwards at a bar on base that was really owned by the Belgian army, and only had Belgian beers, and they were selling them at lower than cost. And you had to be like a soldier or have somebody or be like have a pass to go to this bar. It was a blast, but by the time the day ended, I think I was up like 35 straight hours. And I never recovered from that. Like I kind of just like trudged through the next 3-4 days, hanging out with them, visiting spots in Germany, drove into France one day, and then flew back, had a rough time sleeping there, and I'm back. I know I'm here, but it feels like I'm not even in my body right now. And I have no idea what's been going on with the White Sox, except for when you sent me a text that Andrew Vaughn had been traded.
Yeah, they waited until you were out of the country to give you your long-loved and wanted and desired trade of getting rid of Andrew Vaughn, and they got something for him, and they got something like useful.
I was super excited about that, and you know what? I like the return. Like I noted some people. I went back and kind of read comments that people made when the trade happened, and I've kind of caught up on it since then. And, you know, there's some people who are like, well, why get a guy who's just a rental? He's going to bring back a bigger return at the trade deadline than Vaughn was going to get. You got something valuable
easy
for a guy that you had sent to AAA and given up on, and that you were done with as an organization, to get an actual body, a player, a pitcher who has something to prove, who's ticked off that he got benched essentially by the Brewers, and now is going to get an opportunity with you. And he has had moments in his career when he goes on runs and he looks pretty good out there, and you're going to get some pieces trading him if you're smart in July. This is the halfway point of a trade in which you were able to upgrade your trade value by getting Savale so that you could get more for Vaughn before the deadline. I loved this deal. It's not completed yet until you move Savale, and if he goes out there and hurts himself, right, or he doesn't perform well in the next month or so, that's a problem. But barring a White Sox thing happening here, then I would say this is a great move because it sets you up for an even better move very soon.
Well, and not only that, but there's a couple of benefits right now. I mean, between now and the trade deadline, they can take it easy with Jonathan Cannon coming back. They can give Sean Burke a blow if they feel like he's fatigued, and that's why he's been having some spotty starts lately. They can give guys an opportunity to they can maybe find something more in Mike Vassell or find something more in somebody that they want to start and start building guys up. And they don't have to worry about it. Chris Getz said part of the move was I get to protect my young arms. And that's valid. I do think there's validity in that. But Savale, even if, and they got cash considerations too, so I think it becomes basically a net zero on the cost because Savale was only worth $8 million and Vaughn was worth $6 million. So if the Brewers are picking up that extra $2 million, then the worst case scenario is you've rolled the dice on something. So even if Savale does get hurt and you end up with him on the IL and you can't trade him and you don't ever get anything out of this, you gave yourself an opportunity, which is more than Andrew Vaughn was going to give you because he was not performing at Charlotte in any way, shape, or form, and certainly not enough to warrant him coming back up, and certainly not enough to warrant him being traded to somebody who is looking for a first baseman. frankly, the Brewers, he's just depth for the Brewers.
Well, in a normal situation, most teams aren't looking for Andrew Vaughn. Most teams aren't looking for a failed veteran player now. I mean, he's in season 5, I believe, of his career, who's never really done anything other than be a replacement level player and is playing below replacement level this season and has been demoted to AAA. Like, you needed a team that not only had some sort of need for what he does, but also was desperate to get rid of a pitcher that was causing problems, who was angry that he wasn't going to get the pitch, who was demanding a trade. So this was a perfect storm. I don't know if you get anything better for Andrew Vaughn at the trade deadline. In fact, I didn't even consider him to be a piece they could realistically move for anything. Look at the return they've gotten in some of their other deals where they're just like unloading people, right? Like Matt Thaiss was more valuable than Andrew Vaughn. You got something better than what you got for Thaiss. This was a shock when I saw the name, even understanding he's just a rental and you're going to turn around and flip him. What a piece. And so I love the deal. It's great. I also found it really interesting that after we kind of complained about it, and they didn't do it because of us, but I think we were on the right track, and there were probably other reasons why it wasn't being done. I'm seeing Caro and I'm seeing Teal in the lineup together a lot as I look back as to what's happened over the last week when I was out of town. And then I'm also seeing that they moved on from Joshua Palacios, which is, like, it struck me as funny. This guy was being used every single day. And it seems, Ed, like all of a sudden somebody said, okay, we finally know exactly what he is, and he isn't going to bring us anything at the trade deadline, so we got to put the guys in that could bring us something and make sure we get enough at-bats for the important pieces on the team. That's how I read it.
Well, it may have had something to do with James Fox calling him Josh Palacios, Will Venable's binky on the end of our last episode while you were out of the country. I'm not going to take credit for that's James Fox's deal there, and it did seem sudden, but then when you're looking at what Palacios was bringing to the team, it was very little. Lenine Sosa's back. Ryan Noda is a good gamble at first base that they picked up off of waivers from Boston, who had given him an opportunity after, basically the A's don't have any use for him, even though he's had some good years for them. I think between Noda and Sosa, they're looking at their outfield, and they put Brooks Baldwin back down into the minors. They are looking at a very veteran outfield, and there's not a single name in the outfield right now between Benintendi, Tauchman, Taylor, Slater, and Luis Robert Jr. that couldn't be traded at some point between now and the trade deadline. So if you're going to use Palacios down the road, and they did get him through waivers and into Charlotte because who wanted him, you're going to be able to have an opportunity maybe to trade those guys, free them up if you really want to bring Palacios back up and hold on to him as a security blanket, as a binky, whatever you want to call him. That's great because right now it's a showcase time. You want to showcase Mike Tauchman. You want to showcase Michael Taylor. You want to showcase Andrew Benintendi. You want to showcase these guys so that when teams are looking for an outfielder and looking for a veteran, again, it's about the return now. And this isn't about, sell the team, strip it down to the studs right now. No, this is the beautiful part of the rebuild where we're sitting there going, okay, these rentals, the Aaron Savalis of the world, what can you get for them that's going to move the needle forward come 2026 or 2027? What can you get for Mike Tauchman, who's playing very, very well? Is there anything that you can get for Andrew Benintendi, or is he a guy that's just going to be here until his contract is done? Is Taylor, does he bring something to a contender where you're going to get something back for him? Guys that are not part of the team next year, no matter what. But, and don't forget Adrian Hauser is in that list as well, and he's played very well. So if you can get these veterans playing well, one, you and I have talked about it, you can get the young guys used to being in competitive ball games, and they have been in competitive ball games for the past week or so. Two, if they start winning some of those ball games, you can get these guys used to what it takes to win a ball game, and they can see how they need to perform in the coming years. And three, you can start to try and build something around them. So the bullpen is not great. Can you get bullpen arms for these guys? Yes. Can you get, some starting pitching depth for these guys? Absolutely. Could you find a position player, somebody that's going to, be an outfielder, somebody that's a spare that isn't good enough on a contender but might be good enough for you? Yeah, absolutely. And I say that knowing that it sounds like it's like, well, why would you take somebody's leftovers? But we've talked about the idea of there being teams that have prospects, that have guys at AAA that are not going to come up and crack their lineup, but are too valuable for these teams to let go for something and for nothing rather, and getting something that puts them over the edge, a veteran outfielder, a veteran pitcher, is definitely worth it to a contending team. And we see that every single year.
Ed, I want to tell you something shocking. The bathroom may be one of the smallest rooms in your home, but it's also one of the most dangerous. Wet surfaces, limited mobility, lack of proper support can quickly lead to slips and falls. Hyatt Home Medical Equipment wants you to know the risk is real. More than 80% of home falls occur in the bathroom. Slippery bathtubs, awkward transfers, proper lack of support. Seniors and those recovering from surgery are especially vulnerable, but everybody is. So Hyatt has grab bars, shower chairs, transfer benches, raised toilet seats, walk-in tubs they can set up for you, roll-in showers, non-slip mats and flooring solutions, and so much more. Hyatt's located on the southwest side, and they want to help you out. You can stop in and see them at 3518 West 95th Street in Evergreen Park, or you can go to HyattAccess.com or HHME.com and check out Hyatt Home Medical Equipment. Let's talk about this Noda kid, because I've been learning a little bit about him. And, you know, somebody might sit there and say, okay, well, hold on a second. We got rid of Andrew Vaughn. Why is there anything different standing over her, right? Like Tim Elko's been sent down. What's the deal with this Noda guy? Well, if you look at what he's done, mainly with the Dodgers, actually, and then going to Boston for a little bit, but mainly in the Dodgers, it looks like, and Oakland. Wow, he was in a couple different teams. Toronto he was with. But when he's down in AAA, he seems to consistently be a guy that's in the high 800s in OPS and hit about 20, 25 home runs. So he shows a bat. He's probably around a 260 hitter, 250, 260 hitter when you look at it. I mean, his whole of the minors sits at 255 and an 888 OPS. And then it takes into account his A ball, his AA ball, his AAA ball. And when you look at his last couple like real years in AAA that he spent, it's consistent. And when he got to the majors, he got a real season. He got 495 at bats over 128 games in 2023 for Oakland. He didn't do as well, but he had 230 with a 770 OPS, and he put 16 balls out. Now, I don't think he's had enough major league at-bats to know exactly what he is. He's probably not anything more than that. But if he gets regular time with the White Sox for the rest of the year, this is a guy that could be a surprise, especially if they're doing the same thing that they did with Vargas. Let's find a guy that we think is close and that we can make an adjustment with to make better. Like, I'm not exactly sure he is, or all that he is what they've seen so far. There is still the potential he could be more than what he's done so far in the major leagues, if you're willing to give him time. And the White Sox have the ability to give players like this at bats and time.
Yeah, and he's not young or anything like that. I mean, this isn't really somebody that you sit there and go, man, this is a prospect we could have for years and years.
But when you think about his age in terms of how much time he's actually spent in the majors, there still could be something there that could be usable.
Yeah, and if nothing else, what's the harm in having a guy who's just happy to be here, who's a left-handed bat versus Andrew Vaughn's right-handed bat, or Tim Elko's right-handed bat for that matter, especially if you're going to sit there and say, okay, we know what the infield looks like already. We know Chase Meidroth's here, okay, and he's staying, and for right now, he's your shortstop. We know Lenine Sosa is back from his hip injury. He got called up today and activated today. He's going to be, as you and I are sitting here today, not as people are listening, but he's going to either be your second baseman or he could stand over at first base as well. Josh Rojas is still in the mix. Miguel Vargas is either your third baseman or your first baseman. The infield's pretty well set, right? So what's the harm in sitting there saying, okay, if we're going to have a Lenine Sosa playing every day, especially if he ends up being your first baseman or is helping guys move around the diamond, what's the problem in saying that Ryan Noda is going to get some at-bats against the tougher righties and let a guy like Sosa sit there and not have to deal with them and protect him a little bit, the way you would in a platoon? Or what's the harm in having a guy that can, like you said, come up and hit home runs, but doesn't have expectations or the pressure on him of having to perform and having to be the guy, right? That was the problem with him in Boston. Why did Boston not give him a real chance, even though he's hitting 378 down in Worcester? Well, it's pretty simple. He has to be the man up there, right? The Red Sox are a disaster. They just traded Rafael Devers for a bunch of middling arms.
Not enough. That's what they traded him for.
Yeah, completely not enough. And actually, if you look at their trades for Chris Sale, Rafael Devers, and Mookie Betts, you would sit there and say, I feel really good about Chris Getz. But that's neither here nor there. Ryan Noda, it wasn't going to be the man in Boston. He doesn't have to be the man here. He just has to be a contributor, and he's okay with that. And if you're right, if there's something that they see in this guy, that Ryan Fuller sees in this guy and goes, hey, you know what, I can do something with that, or I see where the loop or the hole is in his swing, and I can change the mechanics, or I can change his focus, and I can get this guy into a different track, then it's worth it. And so, we trust the process. And honestly, if he doesn't work out, who cares? It's been nice knowing you. Hasta la vista, baby. And he just goes away in favor of Tim Elko coming back up, or having Kyle Teal or Edgar Caro spend more time, or bring back Corey Lee, or whatever you want to do to try and fill that gap.
Sox in the Basement is presented to you by Cork and Carry at the Park, 33rd in Princeton, right there on the corner. Go over there and enjoy an award-winning burger, some ballpark favorites that are on the menu. Every time I eat there, it's good, and I constantly change what I'm going to have because there's so many great items on the menu. The staff is warm and inviting and wonderful to deal with. Indoor-outdoor seating, a big, beautiful bar inside where you can get any kind of spirit or wine or the rotating craft beers. Make this part of your pregame, your in-game, your post-game. Cork and Carry at the Park. See more at corkandcarry.com. James Fox brought up, I know, when I was gone in Deutschland. And in fact, before I get to this, quick story I want to share with you. Just a quick story. Okay. And it's not actually from Germany. We went into France and we visited the Maginot Line. Now, this is the trench that was built after World War I that was supposed to prevent the Germans from attacking them again whenever they decided to do it. Like the French were like, eventually...
Spoiler alert, it didn't work.
Right. Eventually, the French were like, eventually, they're going to come back here. So they build these elaborate underground trenches. Like you can live under all this concrete. And actually, when war breaks out, their motto was, they will not get through. And when you go to the monument, when you walk through it, the French act like this is a victory. Like they talk about it as they really didn't get through the Maginot Line. That's because they drove around it and went to Paris, but they like to make it seem like they won something, which is the most hysterical thing. As I'm standing there with some other Americans and I'm listening to the tour guide, and they're talking about France's great victory against the German invaders in World War II. And I'm sitting there going, they're leaving out the part that they only beat like the one group that tried to attack them, and everybody else went through the Ardennes forest.
Yeah, it's a little like Kenny Williams coming out and saying that Manny Machado, we gave him the best offer.
Kenny must be part French, because that was, I could not stop. I could not stop laughing. Every time you read something, you'd sit there and go, are they trying to act like they won something here? When they surrendered because they were told to surrender because the entire country had surrendered. So they're like, we held out for a couple weeks. Like they were really excited about it. It's amazing. It is a really cool thing to see. I don't think it's on most people's list when they're in Europe. If you're ever in that area of the country, go visit it. But that was one of the more entertaining things that I experienced when I was over there. Let's get to Colson Montgomery, though, because James Fox mentioned it, that he thinks that he's going to get up here this year because they're going to want to do on-the-job training. And that frightens me, but whatever. I mean, if this is what they want to do, he's not as hot as he was when he first got out of the gate. I mean, look at his last 30 days. He's only hitting 245. He's got an 883 OPS. Okay, fine. But if he's going to be the superstar you want him to be, is it time? I don't know if it is time. He should be mashing down in Charlotte. Look at the other guys that were down in Charlotte and what they were doing. OPS is at the 450 or higher range for Kyle Teal and for Edgar Caro and for Chase Meidroth before they came up, or close to that. At least Teal was doing it in his last, month or so. And Montgomery's got to be doing the same thing. If you're going to preach getting on base is the most important thing, and that you have to hit these certain markers for all the other prospects, I think that's crazy if that's what the plan is. I was surprised to hear that's what Fox thought they were going to do.
That caught me off guard a little bit, too. I understood his point that...
I believe him. He's very smart, and he normally knows these things about the minors, and Future Sox does a great job over there. That's why I'm surprised, because if he's saying it, it's possible that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, and to echo his point again, he was saying that if Colson Montgomery is doing well in terms of his confidence, his approach is correct, he's making solid contact, even if the results aren't necessarily there. If he's not striking out, going 0 for 5 with 5 Ks, if he's looking that good, then, you don't risk him falling into bad habits again at Charlotte. You bring him up to Chicago and then let the major league staff continue to work with him and try and get him to have the results up here and make sure that his approach files through up here. And I get that. I really do. But I do wonder because even Ryan Noda, when you look at his career stats, I mean, his on-base percentage in the minors is over 400. And even in the majors with limited success, it's 340-something. So when Colson Montgomery is not getting on, and he is not getting on at a real great clip even now, even after I know he's gotten hit in the hand and all that stuff. But with Colson Montgomery not really getting on and not doing what they want him to do, you do wonder, when is that going to happen? And you do start to wonder for him, well, is it ever going to happen? Because over the last 15 days, it's only a 308 on-base percentage, and that seems to be the key more so than the 786 OPS. I mean, he's hitting the ball hard, but he's not really getting on. He's less of a...
He's kind of back to the thing that you didn't like seeing, where, I mean, he's striking out 3 times for every time he gets a walk. The things that they fixed, it's already regressing. Development isn't linear, and guys have good weeks and bad weeks, and, you can cherry pick stats. Maybe they see a difference in him, but, I mean, I got to see a lot more out of this kid. If they were to all of a sudden start the second half with Colson Montgomery on this team, I'd be shocked. And I'd be like, my argument against it would be, you brought Andrew Vaughn up way too early, and look how that worked out for you. Just being here with the staff up at the major league club doesn't necessarily mean everything's going to work out, and maybe a detriment because you're going up against the hardest competition you could possibly find. This is the major leagues. They always say that the jump from AAA to the majors is a bigger gap than any of the jumps at the minor league levels. So it's just such a weird thing if that's what they're considering doing, because they just want to hurry up and get this kid here. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the idea that he's still going to be a superstar, I think, needs to be tempered. There comes a point where you sit there and you go, he might be a contributor. He might even be very good, but is he going to be a superstar? And that's been the problem with the White Sox for years and years and years, is that every top prospect was going to be a Hall of Famer, right? Everybody Andrew Vaughn was supposed to be this hitting savant, this amazing bat control and power and everything. We were going to see this guy, going for batting titles. It never panned out that way, and I'm not sure he was ever that, right? I'm not sure Colson Montgomery is Corey Seager, and that's okay. He doesn't have to necessarily be Corey Seager. He could be Kyle Seager, and we'd be okay too. But the idea that he's going to come up and be a superstar, I think, needs to be tempered as well. If he does make his way to the major leagues this year, I think the best you can hope for him is, can he hold his own and contribute? And then come next year, if he makes the team out of spring training, can he hold his own and contribute? Can he be a replacement level or better? And just let him be that. Okay, he is just a rookie. He is just a kid, and there's no pressure on him to lead the team or be anything other than that. But if he comes up and he is not better at shortstop than Chase Mydroth, then he shouldn't be there. If he comes up and he is not a better hitter than Ryan Noda, then he shouldn't be up here, And it's the same thing for anybody that they bring up from now on. I'm skeptical of anyone, even Braden Montgomery, who gets rave reviews. I'm skeptical of anybody that they call up and say that this guy's a star. I want to see it. I don't want to hear about it anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think there's a distrust from the fan base, and it's a logical distrust, because we've been told a lot of things that didn't pan out. And, I'm sure every team overhypes their prospects, right? But I mean, like, we got really overhyped. I mean, some of these guys were going to be otherworldly. We had the next Mike Trout, remember? Standing out there in center field, and he ain't the next Mike Trout.
Maybe in matching injury for injury with Mike Trout lately, but that's about it.
That's what he did. Him and Mike, they get injured pretty much about the same amount of time. Otherwise, not anywhere near Mike Trout. And when I look at what players, and this is an interesting point. You made me think of this as you were saying that. When I look at players and I want to get another view, right? Not from the prospect hounds per se, not from the team, not from those that are just like staring at like their whole job is looking at your own minor league system. But I love when I see fantasy baseball writers talk about one of our prospects. I find that to be really interesting.
Right.
And I saw a thing over the weekend. I think I was sitting in one of the airports on the way home. I had a really long flight home. Like I flew back from Germany and spent the entire day in New York at JFK. And luckily my cousin was able to come visit me. TWA Hotel over there is like done up like it's the 1960s and it's a terminal, but instead it's just a big bar restaurant with like a place to hang out. So I like left the international terminal, hung out there for the day, and then went back in to finish my flight on Sunday night. While I was sitting there, I was reading like fantasy baseball stuff, and I saw that Grant Taylor is getting write-ups. And the write-up is essentially like, look, this guy is in the bullpen now. He's only a relief pitcher. He's not even going to get save opportunities, even though he should, because he's probably the most talented guy in their bullpen right now. That's the way it was written. And if you have any room, especially if you're in a dynasty fantasy baseball league, grab this guy because he may work his way into the closer role on this team because that's how good he is. Or eventually he may end up being a starting pitcher. And that's the thing. Like when I read something like that, I get excited about somebody in this. That's what gets me excited about somebody on the White Sox. Somebody who there's absolutely no reason to write that. Relief pitchers are a dime a dozen in fantasy baseball. And like they were advising this week, keep your eye on Grant Taylor. I thought that was really interesting, Ed.
Well, yeah, and you watch him pitch, and he's filthy. I know he gave up the goods the other day, but
he's new, he's young, he's a rookie.
And what reliever doesn't do that? I'm sorry, but even the best of them will give it up on occasion out of the bullpen.
Liam Hendricks was a terrible pitcher for most of his career before he became lights out. Like right, I always think of him whenever somebody says something about like relief pitchers, I always go, hey, Liam Hendricks, look at his baseball card. And then eventually he figured it out. So, I mean, like, right. Yeah, this kid's got nothing but potential.
Right. And that's what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for potential. So what do I like about what the White Sox are doing right now? Well, I think, we've talked about the on-base percentage thing, and James Fox and I talked about the on-base percentage thing and about how there's a beginning to be an offensive identity here. So when you see Ryan Noda come in and you go, why is this guy here? And then you look and you go, well, okay, even in the majors, even with a low batting average and playing for some, questionable teams in Oakland, he still gets on base at a 350 clip. Okay, I understand why he's here. Why isn't Colson Montgomery coming up? Well, because he can't get his OPS over, not his OPS, his on-base percentage. He can't get it up much over 350 or 320. So until he gets on base more, I don't know that you're going to see him. But if they fit the mold, they'll be here, right? And that's what kind of excites me too, is like, all right, I get what the plan is. I get why guys are going to be here. So if Colson Montgomery is going to come up and be a guy that they look to and say, not only can he get on base, but he's got the power. And we do know he's got the power. Okay. Then that gets me excited about his potential. I'm not willing to say he's a superstar. I'm not willing to say that he's the next anyone until I see it. But for right now, you're right. Looking at Grant Taylor, looking at some of the other guys that have come up or that are coming up, when you hear about their potential and when you see what their skill set is and how it could translate, that's what gets me excited. So when I see a prospect that I hear is going to be amazing, but when I watch him or when I look at his stats and I see a guy that strikes out too much, doesn't get on, doesn't fit the White Sox offensive philosophy, I sit there and go, you know what? I will wait and see what he has to say when he actually is up here and has earned his way into it. But I'm tired and I do not want to see, and I do not care about rebuild timelines or anything like that. I just don't want to see anybody brought up here and have me told by the White Sox, this guy is going to be amazing.
Right, especially when you're a team that, yeah, we've got a lot of talent up here, but there's a few of these guys right now struggling that are young. They got to figure out some things, and that's why they're up here now. Now they got to get the at-bats, and they got to figure it all out. But while they're doing that, this team is in such a state that I got an email today encouraging me as a White Sox fan to get Mike Tauchman to the All-Star game.
Okay.
That's the best guy. They sat down, they looked at the line, and they were like, well, I mean, he's only played like 25 games, and he's only had like 80-some at-bats, and he's hitting 273 with an 881 OPS. He's the best player on the team. Get Mike Tauchman to the All-Star game.
What on earth?
It's a real thing. Check your inbox. It's a
will,
real
but
thing.
in the presence of Chase Mydroth and Shane Smith, that's your guy?
I thought it was weird too.
Really, White Sox?
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.